Setting your price as a freelancer is a difficult topic to talk about. When you're first starting out, you're tempted to put either too high of a price or too low of a price, but this can have a different outcome when it comes to working with your client. When you put your prices too up, they're going to look at your experience and expect you to give a very good, high quality work. But when you put it too low, they will think that you're just not good at what you do and the work that you do is not that high quality. So it's really important for a freelancer to have their own rates. And when you're first starting out, you can't really go for that high because, like we said, they're going to look at your experience and your work before accepting to work with you. So in this lesson, we're going to be talking about how we can set our rate as a freelancer. You will also know what type of payment is suitable for you and how you would approach that in the job board. So let's first talk about the types of payments that are on Upwork. There is one payment, which is hourly rate, and another one, which is a fixed rate or a flat rate. The first type is hourly rate. You're basically getting paid a certain amount per hour that you work on that project. The second type is a fixed rate, which is a set amount that you will get paid by the end of that project. So when you complete that project and regardless of how many hours you spent on it. So there are these two types and each client will have to choose their own type of payment. It really depends on the project, and when we look at the jobs on the Upwork Find Work section, it clearly states the type of payment. We're going to see how that looks in a further lesson, but first let's talk about which type of payment you should approach. Should you go for the hourly rate or for the fixed rate? So there are a bunch of elements that contribute to you choosing a certain type of payment. The first element is your relationship with that client. If you've worked with the client before, chances are that you know their style and how they do things, and you understand their company well. On the other hand, when you've never worked with that client, you would not be familiar with their style, their company, and just how they do things. Chances are when you're working with a new client, you're going to be moving back and forth a lot because you're getting to know their style. Maybe they'll give some feedback on your work, say that, oh, this is wrong, can you do this instead? So there's going to be a lot of back and forth until you can finish that project. So because of all of these changes, you're going to be spending more time than you would if you knew the client. Just for this reason alone, when you're working with a new client, you want to go for an hourly rate. So if you are indeed going back and forth with all the changes, maybe spending 3 weeks on a logo because you didn't understand their concept well, you want to make sure that you get paid for all of these changes and all of these things that you have to do. So you would go for an hourly rate, and that way you're compensated for all the time that you kept for that, let's say, logo design. So hourly rate is great when you are working with a new client, and basically the client will tell you that per hour that you work on my logo, I will pay you, let's say, $10. So even if you did spend 3 weeks on that logo, you're still going to get paid $10 per hour that you work on that project. When it comes to hourly rates, there is a desktop app that's going to track the time that you spend on that project. So it's not like you can just tell the client that you've spent 3 weeks on that logo when in reality you only spent 2 days. This has a solution, and it's the desktop app. We're going to take a look at that app later, but basically this app is going to track the time that you're working on that project. It's going to automatically take screenshots of whatever it is that you're doing and send it to the client. So there's no room for misunderstandings and everything is right there. There are screenshots, there are timestamps, and that way both the freelancer and the client will be happy with the work that is being done. Of course, when you send a proposal for a project, you can change and suggest a new hourly rate. If the client was like, I can pay $3 an hour, you can suggest that, hey, I would want to work with you, but could we make it $5? So hourly rates can be changed. You can negotiate with the client before starting the project, but make sure that you fully understand the project and then get into working with them. So that's the first type of payment, hourly rates. Stick with it if you are a new freelancer and if you're working with a new client. The second type of payment is a fixed rate, also known as a flat rate. This is where you get a certain amount of money by the end of the project. And regardless of how many hours you've worked on it, that is the only money that you will get from the client. This again can be negotiated with the client. You can bump up the price or lower it if you want. And you can just negotiate with the client. Now this one doesn't really have a time tracking application because you're just going to be like, okay, I'm going to do this logo for you. You're going to send the finalized version. Once the client approves it, that money will be released onto your Upwork account. So it's a pretty simple transaction. There isn't much going on. And of course, Upwork makes sure that you get paid both for the hourly rate and for the fixed rate. Basically, the client will also have to deposit that money before you get started. So it's not like you finish the project, you give them the finalized content, and they just don't pay you, because Upwork has to make sure that the transactions go well. So at the start, the client will be depositing that amount that you agreed on. And once you finish and they approve, the money will be released from Upwork. So in terms of payment, there's no need to worry. Upwork has a lot of security in terms of payments, and you just don't need to worry about the client not paying you. One thing that you do want to take a look at when you're submitting a proposal is that you want to make sure that the client's payment is verified. It could also mean that they're going to verify it later, but it's best to enter a project without any risk. Now, fixed rates are great if you know the client. So you've worked with this client multiple times, you know their style, you know exactly what is it that they're looking for. And that way you can just set a fixed price of, let's say, $200, and you just get that money once you finish. Now, because you know the client, you know exactly what their company does, maybe you know the person who is writing that in Upwork, the chances of you going back and forth with that client because of misunderstandings are quite low. So that's why fixed rates are suitable for this type of relationship. When you know the client, you can easily go for a fixed rate, and that way it will just be easier for both of you. You get the job, you finish it, you get paid, and you move on. So this is how you can choose the type of payment. Both have pros and cons, but the main element is if you know the client or not. Now on your Upwork profile, there is an option to set an hourly rate. This is regardless of your proposals. We saw how we can write that. It's just right on your profile. It's the first thing that the client will see. So let's talk about how you can set your rate as a freelancer. The first and most important thing is your experience in that field of work. Let's say you are a marketing agent and you've never worked in that field. You just graduated and you're starting to look for some jobs. It wouldn't make sense if you put the highest number possible because you have nothing to offer to that client. You don't have any work history, you don't have any experience, and you're basically just telling the client that, hey, I'm new here, but I'm going to take as much money as an experienced marketing agent would take. That's not suitable. So when you're first starting out, you would want to go with the minimum number of payments that a marketing agent would get. If you don't know that minimum amount, you can simply do a Google search, marketing agent, hourly rates, and it's going to tell you the minimum amount and the maximum amount. So if you're first starting out, you have nothing to bring onto your profile, you want to go for the minimum amount. And once you get clients and you're getting more items on your work history, you can slowly bring up that price to reach that maximum amount. But if you have freelanced before, you have job experience in that field of work, of course, then you can just put the rate that you had before. The client will see your rate, and whether it's high or low, they can confirm it with the work history and the experience that you have on your profile. So if you have freelanced before, just make sure that you bring in your work history and your work samples onto your Upwork profile. Just need to do some uploading, some writing, and that way you can seem more credible to the client when they see your high rate. And that is going to make much more sense because you're telling them that, hey, I got all this experience, I'm very busy, I have multiple other clients, so if you want me to put time on your project, I will take more money than an average freelancer. That's going to make more sense than if you had nothing on your profile. Once you have found the minimum and maximum amount for hourly rates in your field of work, you can go ahead and set that number based on the two things that we talked about. One is your experience and one is your work history. You want to put that amount on your profile, and like we said, if you keep getting projects, you can just keep adding onto that amount as long as the amount is relevant to your work history. Now, no matter what you put on your profile, when you're going to write proposals, you're going to have to negotiate the price. Maybe your hourly rate on your profile is $15, but after negotiating for a certain project, it's going to become $16 or maybe less. So what's on your profile is not going to be fixed on every other project that you do, because you would have to negotiate with the client. But that rate on your profile is going to give the client an idea of how much it would cost them to work with you. So when you're going to write proposals, you can always look at the client's budget. And if it's too low and it's way lower than your rate, then maybe not work with that client and go for someone who would give you the right compensations for all the time that you're putting in. When you're going for a fixed rate project or a flat rate project, you can set milestones so that you can get paid in between that duration. For example, the client is looking for a website which is going to take, let's say, 2 or 3 months. Now, it wouldn't make sense for you to wait for the whole 3 months to get paid at the end. So that's why Upwork has kept the option of milestones. Basically, you're going to be dividing that 3-month project into segments, and you can decide those milestones yourself. You're going to, of course, propose it to the client, and once they approve, you can divide the work and the payment. For example, the first month, you're going to do 1/3 of the work and then get paid 1/3 of that finalized amount, and just break it up in a way that would work for both you and the client. So milestones are also very helpful in fixed projects. Make sure to read the description. If it's like a 5-minute video that the client wants, it wouldn't really make sense for you to set milestones because it's just a 5-minute video. But if it's a very long project, maybe more than 6 months, 3 months, then you want to set milestones so that everything goes well in a certain order and you don't have to wait that long to get paid. But with hourly rates, like we said, there's a desktop app, so your time is being tracked at all times and you're going to be paid for the time that you put in. So the client will have a work diary of you, and they can see exactly what you've been up to. So everything in Upwork has been planned beforehand. In terms of payment, there's nothing to worry about. So that's how you can set your rate on Upwork. With these two types of payments in mind, you can go ahead and write your price for the proposals that you write in. Make sure to read what type of payment it is and see whether that's suitable for you before writing a proposal. In further lessons, we're going to take a look at this desktop app, and we're also going to write our first proposal where we can take a look at where these types of payments are written and how we can negotiate a price. I'll see you guys in the next lesson.